Please welcome back to the stage global urban design and city strategy expert, Ludo Campbell-Reid.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can I have your attention, please? I should whistle or something, would be a little bit inappropriate, maybe. Hello, everyone. Can I have your attention, please? Fantastic. You're not going to hear from me for very long. I'm just up here to introduce the next part of the afternoon. So good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for coming back. The room is still looking really full, Paula, which is fantastic. And I hope everyone's had a good break, able to sustain themselves, a little bit of coffee, some tea, and some cakes, and really check in with each other. And as Paula's asked you to do, just to reflect on the morning. So as I said, thank you for coming back. What an amazing morning I've had. I hope you all have had too. It's just been fascinating just hearing the information that's been deployed to us today, and there's a bit talking about what Richard was talking about this morning. It's a real gift of knowledge and language. So thank you for all the incredible speakers this morning for sharing their knowledge. My mind's buzzing like many people I've talked to in the coffee queue. Ideas, things I want to do, and I hope everyone's feeling that same level of buzz too. So I guess just a bit of high-level things. Water is life was something that came out from the last session this morning. Density is not a dirty word. Someone said my only fear is not realizing the opportunity, which I thought was a brilliant way to really focus us on what happens on Monday, what happens this afternoon, and it's about keeping that energy level up. We're blessed geologically, geopolitically, how to create innovation precincts, youth mentors. That was brilliant. This young group, I mean, wow, amazing. And we may have met the future Prime Minister of Australia, and it would be amazing in 20 years' time if I'm still alive. I can't get any shorter or fatter, but I would say I was here. I was here that day when the Committee of Perth pulled together this moment, and I think you have to treat it like this. This doesn't happen very often, as I said, so I'm excited about that. And then Richard talked about this idea of collective consciousness and this idea of negotiating, not fighting, and I think that's really some of the language we're going to have to move into the afternoon with. And, I loved it. And that last presentation about life at 95 centimetres as well. That's awesome and so important. So I loved it. Thank you, Paula and the team, for an amazing morning. So this afternoon, everyone, is your chance. We've talked a lot at you, but it's been inspiring. It's now time to hear from you. And this is what I believe is the most important part of the day, is where we all come together and where the magic actually happens. But magicians and magic, we need the right people to lead us through the afternoon. And so the Committee of Perth has asked sort of workshop facilitation gurus called Purple to lead the afternoon. And so we've got two of their top team. We've got Ruth and Emily, I believe, who are going to come up and lead the afternoon. So Ruth and Emily, are you going to join me on stage, or do I jump down? There they are.
There we are. Thank you, Ludo. I am Ruth Callahan, and I am the woman with the easiest job in this entire room, because you're not going to have to hear from me very much at all. I am here to facilitate this workshop for one reason only, and that is because everything we've heard today so far has been brilliant, but it goes nowhere without a plan. And when Paula said this morning that we needed to start advocating for a plan for Perth, this is exactly what she means. She means turning to the people in this room who are industry leaders, university leaders, people with enormous experience in their sectors, organisations. There are so many in this room who have been really instrumental in what has made Perth what it is today. Now we want you to start planning, putting pen to paper, on what Perth becomes. And I think what's going to be really critical to that is a little bit of controlled chaos. So you will find on your tables ahead of you that there is at least one, maybe two workbooks. And these are the workbooks that basically take you through what we're going to do. We're encouraging you to really share your ideas at this point, and not just the high-level aspirational ideas, but the how. How do we get to a Perth where water scarcity isn't a threat? How do we get to a Perth that is livable and connected and inclusive? How do we make some of the ideas and inspirations we've heard today into a tangible reality? So let me run you through very quickly what we're going to do. If you look at the workbook, it's got a bulldog clip. You can pull it off. You can scatter the pages around the table. You can have a look ahead at what the questions are. We've got 8 that we're going to work through, but we're going to start with the most positive ones. And what we want you to do is maybe nominate one scribe or share the scribing around. Maybe nominate a table monitor, table captain, table guru who's going to direct things. But I really want you to nominate some provocateurs. And those people are the ones that are going to keep you in line and not just say, oh yes, Perth, it will be livable. But to say, what does that mean? What does that translate as? How does that actually look? How will we know when it's worked? And so those provocateurs are going to be really critical to making sure that we go from nice idea to action. Now, the second thing you'll find in your workbook is a bit of a guide to the questions. And at the very back, you might see a bit of a plan on a page, which I know is a very corporate-y buzzword. But that's kind of what we're working towards. So as you go, you might want to use that as a reference point, or you might just want to work towards that as we work through. Now, I am ably assisted by a number of people in the room. We have Paula, obviously. We have my good colleague, Emily. My colleague, Ellie, is over there at the back. Now, they're going to wander around and check that everybody's not just, on TikTok, having conversations, making sure that the work that's coming forward is on track, but also answer any questions that you might have. But more to the point, they're also going to find some of those insights in the room that we really want to uncover and share around. So at different points in this process, we're going to come back to you and say, look, we really want to hear about the different elements. Now, one final thing before I give you a couple of minutes to set up your table and check that everything's on track is that we can't do this without some focus. There is so much that we've heard today, so many opportunities, so many challenges. They're as big as the state of Western Australia is itself. So we're going to ask you to focus on one, maybe 2 of the key themes that we've heard today around live, work, invest, study, and making Perth an amazing place to visit. So we'd ask you to, first of all, have a chat at your table, figure out the themes that are going to work for you, and then we're going to kick off in a couple of minutes. So. Okay. Clear as mud so far? Oh. All right, I'm going to make a couple of quick announcements. I believe that most people have now settled on one or two themes. You got 2 booklets, so feel free to put it 1 theme per booklet, that's fine. Number 2, there are a few tables where there are only a couple of people. So if you're at a large table, or if the topics that you're working on don't quite resonate for you, feel free to find a table where there's some extra space. And then number 3, I do want you to really think about who you're bringing to the table. And I love that table 22 down here has introduced a virtual cockatoo as their 5th member, who's going to be their environmental touch point when they don't remember to bring in the environment into the conversation. So if you need to bring in someone else's perspective, please feel free to do that too. So I'm going to ask you to start with the first question, and it's a really easy one. So our first question is very simple. We're going to have 9 minutes to talk about what are our greatest strengths. Very simple. You might go on for some time. I know that people are really engaging on question 1, but I can also see some of you are moving on to question 2, which is pretty similar. So I'd like you to also think about, when you're talking about our strengths, what are we underutilising? What are the things we're not doing enough? Now, I'll give you some more time for that one as well, but I'd then like to come back and we're going to ask some of the tables what they're thinking. So what are our strengths, but what are we underutilising as our strengths? All right, I'm really hesitant to interrupt some of the conversations that are taking place, but I do want to make sure we hear from some people across the floor. So far we've asked you really simple things. What are Perth's greatest assets? Pretty easy, we've got a lot of them. And what are the things that we're underutilising? So I just want to maybe see if we can, the table down there in the back corner, maybe we hear from them briefly about one of their points.
So we need this mic working. Perfect. Hello.
Hi. We talked a lot about the blank canvas that currently is Perth. Perth is quite young in the greater scheme of things, and there's a fabulous opportunity to develop it and there's a wealth of knowledge in Perth and potential from people who've chosen to move here and chosen to live here from the global stage, and I think that's a blank canvas and a massive opportunity.
I think that's fantastic, and it's one of the things that, I mean, you could hear in the speakers earlier today how many accents, how many people have moved into Perth. There are people in this room who are 2-3 weeks into their Perth lifestyle. There are people who've been born and bred here. There are people whose families date back 5 generations and those who date back 2000. So I think when we bring those perspectives together, I think that's really valuable. Are there any other tables that we might want to try and jump into?
I've got another one here, Ruth.
Thank you.
This table are actually working on Visit, and they had a really excellent insight about what attracts people to a location.
We just found that Perth was too generic in some cases. There's nothing really quirky, no really interesting kind of buildings or places, and a lot of when you go shopping here, all the malls are the same. There's not as many boutiques as there was when I first moved to Perth, and it's a real shame, particularly if you wanted to find something different. And yeah, that's just what we want to see more quirkiness in Perth.
And I think I heard some protests from local governments up and down the street over here, which is fine. But I think, again, it comes back to a really interesting conversation, and it's not one we've talked a lot about today, but part of the brand that is Perth is essential to our description of the future. So it is worth thinking about how we want to present ourselves on the world stage and what we want to be known for, because we're not Brooklyn or Queens or Melbourne or Adelaide. We're Perth, and bringing forward what makes that essential is going to be really critical as well. So look, I think that's a good summary of the easy stuff. Now I want to get into something a little harder, and I want to look at our third question, which will pop up any second. There we go. So we've identified our strengths. Now, we've also heard today, though, about some of the challenges that are on the horizon. So we've talked about climate change, we've talked about water scarcity, we've talked about increased population, we've talked about increased pressure on our housing and the sprawl. We all understand that very little of the Swan River Plain remains untouched, but there are also external factors that are going to be challenging. We have these strengths, you've identified these strengths. How are they going to protect us against some of those? So it's a bit more of a complicated question. I'm going to give you 10 minutes. We'll come back.
Our friend here. There's a surprise.
Alrighty. I said that was a hard question, and the reason why we ask it is this. It's really good to talk about the things we love, the things we value, the things we think are great. But when you change the question to say, how does this thing that we value protect us and help us adapt and be defensive, it actually changes the conversation about how we have it. So I might go, Paula, you've got a table there talking about the strength of our study environment, strength of the investment, and how we work into the world.
But? Drew.
Thank you for that. Hurriedly writing my notes. Our table took a two-prong approach to thinking about live and to study. Some of the conversation revolved around how might we elevate our world rankings for universities and learning organisations. And the best idea we collectively came up with was to launch an aggressive attraction and retention strategy to reach out to the world's best and brightest, engage them in coming to some of our fantastic universities, highlight the benefit of the livability, and frame the isolation of Perth as a competitive advantage, not a weakness. And hopefully spin out some edutourism opportunities resulting from that.
Fantastic.
And I'd just like to say, because there is an organisation in Europe called Copenhagen Capacity, which does exactly this, and I think that's a really, really good idea. It really helps kind of define the brand through work and kind of livability and study. And, you know, it just makes it look like the coolest place. And can you imagine kind of seeing our coastline? And so, yeah, that's a really good idea. Thank you.
And while we're thinking study, I might come to the ECU table as well, because I think you had similar thinking.
So we talked about the strength of our education system here in WA and the relationships that we have across the different levels of education. However, we also then talked about the challenge around preparing graduates for needs of industry. And so we thought, we talked then subsequently a lot about how we can use those existing relationships between TAFE, university and industry to look at new models of education where students are getting the skills that they need for the workforce, a university degree, but also industry experience and servicing the needs of industry while they're working at the same time. So a tertiary harmonisation piece.
Fantastic, thank you. And I'm just going to look out at the tables and see if there's another group that may want to contribute. One of the things that I have heard a few times is that one of our strengths is our isolation, and one of our strengths is our connection to and proximity to the busiest part of the world. So I think that's a really interesting thing that we can lean into both of those.
We've got one over here, Ruth.
Oh, Ellie.
Hello. So we were looking at the livability of the city and the strengths. So obviously our strengths we thought were the clear blue skies, vastness of space, the natural beauty, sunsets, things like that, the beaches obviously. But then when we looked at how to protect our strengths, what we really needed to do and what needed to be true was things like perhaps a boundary on the urban form. We have a problem with sprawling, and that sprawling's aided and abetted by all of our land development companies, and they're not going to change their business model unless they're forced to. So a boundary would force them to do that, and it's unfortunate because they're selling a suburban model that actually doesn't exist in reality. The suburban model they deliver now isn't vastness of space, trees, backyard, front yard. It's just this massive house on a tiny block in a very badly designed suburb. So I think, going forward, that kind of density really needs to happen without, transport infrastructure improvements in, the areas, central sub-region areas where arguably that's where all that amenity actually is existing. We're going to be, not creating a great place, and we're going to lose all the values that we want to protect, our greatest strengths, our vastness of space, our tree canopy and the like.
I think that's really interesting because, again, when we talk about space, we mean different things. So quite a few people in the survey that you may have completed before coming along today talked about a willingness to downsize as long as they weren't compromising. And I think people are happy with less personal space if they can access good public space and those third spaces where they can come together with others. So I think that's a really interesting theme that's coming through here as well. Are there any more? All right. Otherwise, we will go to the next question. So I think you touched on that one. Thank you to that table as well. Talking about, okay, what do we need to do then to preserve those? So what are the things that have to be true for us to say we do want these things to work for us in the future? Now, this might be considering what regulation we do think is required, or what social change is required, what cultural change, what personal individual shifts that need to take place. So what does it have to be true for the vision that we're building of Perth to be a reality? All right. So when with that question there, we've started to really nut out some of what we really mean by challenges and what we really mean by change and what that means on the ground. So I want to take a couple of tables on a couple of different journeys. So Em, I wonder if I can start with, well, it's hard to read the numbers from up here. Yes, this table there, who were talking about density, and I really want them to maybe explain the challenge that they think it needs to address and then how we might approach it.
We're just having a bit of an argument about who's going to speak here because everyone wants to.
I'll just say my grand plan because that's only said really one thing, but I think we are doing livability and we're looking at housing and livability of WA, and there's a lot of tensions between NIMBYs and YIMBYs, and there's a lot of tensions between the way that planning approvals are done by cities or local government areas versus the state government stepping in and having a more overarching plan. And I'm sort of thinking that the state government does need to take a bigger role in making that plan for us so that we can follow suit and really address some of these huge issues. And yeah, I want them to lead us in how to achieve higher density housing, help us with that. Maybe do a lot more co-investment and to build that housing too. I think apartment buildings need the government to step in and ensure that they're affordable and suitable for the population that we have. And yeah. And
we were referring back to the slide earlier about the design principles in Brisbane, where you are building apartments and you're going high density, that you're very aware of those design principles, lots of natural light, natural ventilation, making them spaces that people want to be in and that connect people as part of a community as well, being very important.
And I think you were also making the point around the fact that it's interconnected. So it's not just about building a tall apartment block somewhere. If the road system doesn't work for that, if the transport system doesn't work for that, if there isn't a place for those kids in that apartment block to go and play in a park, then suddenly you end up with an isolated building on the way through. Now, I think the table number, where are we? I think 29 also was weighing in on density. Can we talk to them? Sorry, just...
Run, Ellie, run.
Who am I speaking to?
Hello. I'm just going to take it back a couple of steps to where we started, and I'm going to get on my own personal hobby horse here, but one of the greatest strengths that we identified is actually the oldest continuous culture on Earth. And I have a personal interest in this because I'm working on the Aboriginal Cultural Centre, but the this is a strength that we're underutilising, but we're also massively underutilising the knowledge of the traditional owners. And when we talk about sustainability, so I'm an architect, and in this industry we work in, we talk about sustainability all the time, and we talk about it in a holistic sense, social, environmental, economic, and how that design contributes to that. But the best sustainers of the land for millennia are Aboriginal people, and there's so much that we can learn from there. And so through that conversation, we actually ended up talking about caring for country and how that is also, the biodiversity of WA is one of our greatest assets, and we all love it and we all recognise it, yet it is continuously cleared to create suburbs miles away with no trees that are extremely hot, harsh environments where community is very hard to create because people are kind of very sort of separated off from each other, living in homes that have 900 mil to the boundary and a sort of postage stamp of backyard. And it's doing all of the things to create essentially what could be a ghetto in the future. And certainly as climate change takes on hold, they're going to get hotter and harsher, and people are disconnected, and you're creating loneliness, and you're creating everything that we don't want. And so actually the conversation about density is about bringing people together, it's about community, and done well, which isn't just apartment buildings, it's actually the whole context, the urban design, where you put maybe not apartment buildings, maybe you're just building 2 stories with more green space and a tree, rather than just building out to the boundary and having no space for trees. Because those things contribute to health and well-being, they contribute to the opportunity to actually have your kids playing in the shade, and essentially density is not something to be feared by massive tall apartment blocks. Yes, we probably do need a lot of them because we've got a housing crisis, but ultimately we actually just need to maximise the benefits of what we have here rather than kind of taking it for granted. And to the point earlier, if the billions of dollars of infrastructure costs to keep going further and further and further away is something that really needs to be changed from a policy point of view. And the government shouldn't be paying those costs. We should be incentivising better, more dense local communities.
I did like the number that was given, that it's $90 million saved if you build 1,000 homes in an existing suburb versus the extended ones. I imagine some of that money on the table might change the thinking of some of the inner city councils about their low ratios. But what I would like to do is come now to the investment question, because we haven't really touched on this much. Now, we know that WA has a very strong resources sector, and that's not likely to change entirely in the next decade or two. There will be elements that do shift, but I would like to come down to this table here, which is, number is sideways to me.
10.
Yes, but to talk about what needs to be true to keep diverse industry in Western Australia.
We were talking about this in the context of energy, and we think we're going to need to access new forms of energy and new energy technology, because we can't just do what we've always done with a state this big.
And that's partly true in terms of existing businesses as well. I mean, it can be challenging for businesses to get what they need, but then in an electrified society, we're going to need more as well.
He said definitely.
Excellent. And then I think there was one more table, which I believe...
one over here.
Oh, yes, perfect.
While Ellie's walking over there seem to be a lot of silent yimbies in the room. So just out of interest, can I get a show of hands who would support an apartment project in the direct proximity of their house? Who would support an apartment project next door to their house? How about keep your hand up if you over 20 stories. Right, Webby, we're coming for your house. Over to you, Ellie.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yep.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Table 42, 2050, and it has to come down to people care. because you can create everything that you want to, but if we're not caring for our people, our population, at its core, then we've missed the mark. And you'll hear hopefully a bit more from us in the future around how we can create a community that's happy. And taking from the cultural perspective, the oldest culture, but what about the cultures that are currently interwoven into the fabric of Perth? We are an incredibly multicultural city, and we know of our distant proximity to South East Asia and the knowledge that we can provide to those nations through our education systems, but also through the experiences of Perth, its coastline, etc., etc. So we acknowledge that we need a greater population to achieve a lot of what we're wanting to work towards. But if we focus on what the multicultural piece looks like and what they bring to the conversation, I think the whole notion of building a very vibrant, healthy and happy Perth can be achieved.
Fantastic, thank you. And look, I think that conversation is one I just want to end with, and it's the table, if you would, just towards there. I'm sorry, I can't see the table number. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Wave your hands, table brave enough to talk about
really
politics.
Dangerous, Ruth.
Yes, there we
send
go.
me a location.
So this is the only table
Drop me a
I've
pin.
seen so far that's really engaged on the politics of this. What needs to be true in our political system for this to work?
It's lots of finger pointing, but I think I've found the culprit.
I can't remember what I was talking about. We were talking about, short-term thinking, and there's a couple of things. One is the political short-termism. We're still stuck in a 4-year cycle, which I think we all agreed was actually an 18-month cycle, because you get elected, you do some stuff, then you try and get elected again for the next 2.5 years, and someone comes in and undoes things and you kind of start again. So we don't have that long-term thinking. That's politically, and then socially, there's a bunch of cultural norms that seem to be realities that aren't realities. We talked about, we all need to live in this big house. What was that? We're talking about cultural norms. Anyway, a lot of these, the property ownership, this is all driven by marketing. So we can overcome these things. They're not realities. They're things that can be changed with a change in attitude, I think.
I think that's another interesting point that I know that Paul is very fond of saying, we overestimate what needs to happen in the next couple of years, but underestimate how quickly things can change in the longer term. When we talk about social shifts, we know the social shifts are taking place all the time, but the rest of our infrastructure doesn't necessarily keep up. So it's really interesting to think about that from a housing perspective, and some of the things we heard earlier today, where we say that the number of extended family members are shrinking, but a lot of us have very good friends and very good extended relationships. There's just no housing structure that works around that, where you might share in proximity to people that you know but are not related to. There's plenty of your family members. So some of those social shifts and the cultural shifts and some of our expectations may really need to be thought about on the way through as well. Now, I think we've covered a lot of the challenges. I'm going to ask you, though, to really knuckle down on how we get there in a couple of different ways. So the next question I want to ask you isn't about how can this be done for us, but what do we need to do as a community to start making some of the changes that we're talking about? So you might want to, also have a look at the plan on the page as well, if you've got that in your book, and just see where we're going here, because I think it will help start to make this really concrete. And provocateurs at the table, don't let them off with light statements. Make sure that they put a real plan down. When you've done that one, I want you to have a look at the next question along. Once you've established what community can do, also answer where you might need some help. Okay, I think that's my favourite question so far in terms of how much optimism. I'm hearing a lot of people who can actually see that the community can do an awful lot on its own, although there are some areas where we need some help. So what I might start with, Em, I wonder if you might pick out a couple of people that you've heard that talking about what the community can do.
Yep, absolutely. I've got a group here, Ruth.
We were talking about the idea of village living as a way of addressing isolation and the need for support from your nearby community, which is often lacking, particularly given housing fragmentation and the cost of housing. And we started talking about the importance of an education piece around creating an openness to diverse living arrangements. So whether that is like an intergenerational home or different types of apartments, apartments with gardens, apartments with 3 bedrooms, not 2, people understanding how different types of living work, including strata, and what the costs are, the implications of stamp duty and other taxes in people making decisions about changing their housing arrangements, because that cost can be a real hurdle and a real preventer. The importance of urban planning when you're thinking about or bringing into that ideas about social welfare and about how people live. So if you're thinking about a village and a village mindset, you're thinking about maybe community space, community gardens, different people, so maybe grandparents and young families or friends being able to live near to each other.
I think it's a really nice example of how you can't necessarily impose that change. You've got to have people who are willing to buy into a village lifestyle, willing to share their lawnmower, willing to have the kids play loudly in front of their apartment balcony. So I think it's a really nice example that there is perhaps a personal change that we'll all have to go through for some of this, while at the same time, the infrastructure you point to, understanding some of those structural changes that might be in the way.
I did hear someone say racetrack over here, but since we're in Burswood, I might skip and see if Ellie's got anyone on her side of the room.
Perfect.
Thanks, Em. We had some great conversation over here. I'll just hand over.
I've lost my train of thought. I feel like I've been put on the spot. We were talking, there was a lot of great points made in the room today. And I know there was one over here on this table about potentially state government and boundaries and things like that. And I absolutely agree with that. I think we are going to continue to spread, and developers that are for profit, if there's nothing to stop them, we are going to continue to spread, and then we are creating this problem where we need to spend so much money on infrastructure to then connect the communities that we've spread out to rather than building up, and it creates a lot more problems. And then we kind of get into this mindset of creating maybe an apartment block that hasn't been well thought out, that doesn't have green spaces because it's a solution to a housing crisis, and it's built quickly and it's built poorly, and it doesn't carry those good effects that we want to create a community space with lighting and all of those things that we want to do when we're building those sort of building up processes, because we've created this problem and we need a quick solution. So I do think while we can't just expect government to make change and those sorts of things, there should be like a community push to incentivise rather than maybe creating boundaries, but having whether it's state or federal government should have a plan to maybe encouraged by community to at some point step in and incentivise, the building up and developers or whoever it is, discouraging them from that building out process so that we can continue to use that money in connecting and creating spaces in the centre and building up those small communities within. And then people can downsize rather than owning property out, having to go so far to have the Australian dream, because we do have those communities and we do have those third spaces. And then, we're helping boost the economy, because when people have the community near them or have those spaces around, they are going to go out and spend, and because it becomes more affordable and we can fill those spaces with other parts from the community, whether that's restaurants or cafes and those sorts of things. But when we're ignoring it and not incentivising it and just continuing to sprawl out. We're having to spend so much money in infrastructure forcing the connection rather than building what we already have to be more connected.
Fantastic, and actually a fantastic segue into our final question. Now what I'm going to do is I want to tweak this final question a little bit because I want to do two things. One, I don't want you to necessarily tell me all the ways that government can get involved, because I think it's really important, as you've just highlighted, that there are some things that government can do that other people cannot. But if you've got to narrow down to one ask for government to make sure that the kind of vision that you're talking through will come to fruition, what might that be? I'll let you have two, but at least, what's the exact request that you're going to nail? And then while you're doing that, we're also going to start preparing for what we call the final section today, which is the soapbox. So as we've gone around, we've heard a lot of people with different perspectives, and I know that there are more in this room that we have not heard. You're going to have 1 minute. You can get on your soapbox and you can present your idea. So either let me know, Ellie, or we'll come and nominate you, but we're going to do a couple of soapboxes at the end of this. Final question, what is the ask for government? And then we'll go to soapbox. Okay. It's now that time of the afternoon where I'm really conscious of standing between you and a glass of wine. So, can I just say thank you so much for the work that I have seen put in today. I mean, the engagement and also the detail that I'm seeing at tables is fantastic. I was very tempted to throw to the floor, but somebody pointed out that a lot of us do work for government, so maybe we won't put on the record. We might just keep that one quiet. But I'm ready for some soapboxes, and Em, I believe you have a few. So, the rules of the soapbox. If you have not had a chance, if you've not had an idea, go forward, but it's burning in you, I need to hear from it. And you've got exactly 1 minute. So, no, it's not a long soapbox, but it's a good soapbox. So, we'll start off.
Hello. I'd like to start off by saying that I've learned a lot of new things today, and I've met a lot of people, but I also found out that a satellite city is a city outside of a city and not living on the space station. Okay. One thing I thought that is a really big thing progressing further into the future is that going into the future, there will, from my point of view, be a lot of disconnection between the new generations and the other generations. Because from what I've seen is that the further along the line you get, the less connected you get with people that aren't your age. And going into the future with everything like technology, I feel that there won't be as much face-to-face conversations with people, and I feel like that's a big part about a community, having that face-to-face talk, you know. And so I feel losing that in the future will make us more of a divided city and not as Perth is. Perth.
Yeah, you're all going to struggle to top that. That was excellent. Thank you so much.
I would not want to be next. Hey, Chris.
Thanks, Sam. My soapbox moment, as West Australians and Perthites, be bloody proud. I think we are often our own worst enemies. We talk about ourselves as the most isolated city in the world. We talk about Western Australia, WA, wait a while, we'll get it later. I think we've heard today, we've got so much to be proud of and so much to look forward to. We are not just a mining town that digs things out of the ground now. In terms of defence, in terms of culture and the arts, in terms of film, in terms of health, well-being, everything. My soapbox moment is for everyone. I'm preaching to the converted here, but go away and speak to 10 people in the next week and talk about what you've talked about today. And in that way, we're actually spreading the word in terms of what we are and what this city can be in the next 25 years. So, yeah, that's it.
Fantastic. Thank you for that.
I went to a comedy show the other night and the comedian was from America and he thought that people were FIFOing into Perth to do the mining. And he said, I couldn't work out why everyone was flying out. It's not that bad. So, I've got one down table 22.
I really like the idea that the 2050 summit vision has a really smart campaign around it. I'd like to thank RAC, wherever you are, for introducing us to Mr. Ferrier a couple of years ago, who is from WA, and he's a marketing advertising guy, but he's got a psychology background. And I think that the messaging in this future 2050 needs to be really clever so that you're bringing the whole community along with the people that are in this room. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's an incredibly important point.
Thanks. John Atkins. One thing that hasn't been talked about, we've talked about the housing crisis. There is, I think, a greater crisis which has the potential to undermine all of the things we're talking about, and that is the lack of social and affordable housing in Perth. We live in the richest city in the richest state. It's outrageous that we don't have any housing for people who are entitled to social and community housing, and I think we need to address that to allow these great plans to go forward.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, I'm coming right here.
Hello. We've been looking at the Invest one, and sorry, I'm going to stand up. Very good. We would like to see government set up a new vehicle to attract private investment, both onshore and offshore, into the state. And I guess the flip side of that, whether it's the same vehicle or a separate one, is government providing a body and a mechanism to provide venture capital funding for the best ideas, so that those can really get roots here and grow. I guess that the challenge there that we haven't quite solved in our discussions is how do you then keep them here as they grow going forward?
Did you have an idea on how we keep them here, or no, not yet? No worries.
And I think I can take two more.
We've got two more. One
Yeah.
here. Yep.
All right, well, we had a little discussion a bit earlier about the brand of Perth, the identity of Perth. And we realised that while we are isolated and distant, we are also courageous entrepreneurs, that this could be the hub of the courageous entrepreneur, that, no matter how expensive the housing crisis is, the cost of living is, we can work together, we can build something that can earn more than we have to spend, kind of like, Silicon Valley or New York City, or we get there with the right innovation, with the right community, creative arts or small business. It's the same goal, that we could be that hub, that we can build something that is so powerful that would be attractive worldwide to sit here and entrepreneur.
Amazing. Ruth, I just thought it might be fun if there's someone sitting in the room who's like, I must be heard, if on the count of 3 they jumped up and said, I must be heard. Oh, wait. I didn't hear you though.
Perfect.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring us back to Richard Wally, who opened, and I think that anything that we take forward from here needs to have our First Nations people with us and beside us, and what he laid out as a system and the codes, I think we must remember. And also, the young people here, you have been such an inspiration for me, and I think we need you there. We need you by our side, and if we're going to have any... Just hearing about what was happening in the city of Playford with Mindera, I think children and young people and our First Nations people are who we have to walk with, because those solutions are here. And look at these people in this room. I want to say to Paula, how do we keep these conversations going? I lived in Adelaide for 5 years, and we had a Thinkers in Resident program there where we brought Charles Landry, who was very much part of that transformation in Glasgow. We had documentary filmmakers, and they came and they were resident in Adelaide for 12 months and engaged with this diverse part of the community. And they were there for a year, and lots of things sprung out from that are still continuing to this day, and it was great to see that work continue in the city of Playford.
Thank you.
Ruth, I think we can't only have one I must be heard in a session. There has to be one more. 1, 2. You've got to say it and jump up. We'll come on over. But you have to say it. You don't get... I must be heard. Perfect. I say this quite a lot at home, actually. I must be heard to my cats. They're like, shut up. We're listening.
That's a great segue. Are we actually listening? Now, my point is that sometimes we do things because we like to do things, but as Dr. Wally said, there was a massive system for generations of people here today, and then one of the speakers came out and then said, well, we need more money for hospitals, when the whole point was we needed to be proactive on this. So as an industry, as a community, are we actually listening? And are we listening to people from diverse cultures? Are we listening to Indigenous people? Or are we just doing it because it sounds great to do it? So my soapbox is I don't actually think we are engaging with people from diverse places, whether it's vulnerable people, whether it's younger people. I think we actually really need to change our rhetoric on that, and don't worry about the older people, because we're all going to be dead soon anyway. So there's probably a lot of older people in the room that I'm going to shock, but yeah.
On that very cheerful final note,
I regret my choice doing a last one.
I do want to acknowledge what you've just said, though. I think if we were to walk away from here and go, well, that was interesting, it was an interesting day out, now on with the rest of our lives as usual, we haven't done what is expected of us as industry leaders, thinkers, professional people, people who are embedded in government. It's not enough for us to go away and go, well, that's it, my work here is done. This is a starting point of a 25-year journey where we all have the opportunity to shape what that future looks like. I'm really grateful for the work that you've put in on the documents that you've left behind. Please leave them on the table. My good friend AI is going to help me transcribe them and figure out your handwriting, so that will be helpful. But I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, from Emily, from Ellie, and from all of us involved in this process, we are really grateful for the work that you've put in. Thank you very much. I'll hand back to Paula.
Please welcome our summit partners, the Department of Energy and Economic Diversification, represented today by Simone Spencer, Deputy Director General, to deliver the official vote of thanks.
Thank you. I think it's actually the biggest honour of the day being introduced as potentially Paula. Apart from hair colour, I don't think I can actually keep up with the energy that you've had all day. It's just been absolutely amazing. So first of all, I would like you to join me in a round of applause for Paula and Committee of Perth. Now, it's been an amazing day. I think the start for me with Dr. Richard Walley and his insightful opening was amazing. I would like to acknowledge too the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I don't think Dr. Richard Walley could have set the scene any better than getting us to think about our shared code. And I think for me, that's really getting us to think about how we want to be together, but how we want to think together for Perth. I'd also like to acknowledge our speakers and panellists today, and it's been a really diverse group. I've loved the diversity of views and perspectives on Perth in 2050. I love the fact that Minister Sanderson assured us that we were no longer Dullsville, and that we can look forward to a bright future fuelled by renewables. But I think it was actually Ludo that left us with the killer quotes for the day. My takeaways were city making is a team sport, and I definitely think we've participated well in our team sport today. But I think my absolute favourite is, in God we trust, everyone else bring data. Now, I'm pretty sure he's channeling all of my ministers when he made that comment, and that would definitely be their mantra. Can I also call out our youth panel? Now, I can speak for anyone here over the age of 30, that when I was listening to them, I was thinking to myself, what the hell was I doing it with my life at that age? So incredibly articulate, very, very passionate. And I think then when we went on to discuss AI, it wouldn't have been a contemporary summit without it, and it's certainly something that occupies a lot of my mind and thinking about the future and how we shape it. So I'm very proud to be representing the Department of Energy and Economic Diversification, or DEED, as we like to be called. And as a sponsor of this summit, DEED shares the Committee for Perth's commitment to collaboration, innovation and actionable strategies for Western Australia's growth. And as reflected in so many of the discussions today, Perth and Western Australia more broadly is so well positioned to be a global green energy powerhouse, a world-class hub for innovation and technology, and home to a diverse tourism industry with something on offer for all international markets. And I think that's something we should be incredibly proud of. Now, DEED plays an important role in facilitating Western Australia's economic diversification and decarbonisation efforts as we move towards 2050. And we've heard an enormous amount about that and how important it is today. But I also have the pleasure of leading Invest and Trade Western Australia, which is your global network. And as we foster exciting new energy investment in trade partnerships and pursue those supply chain opportunities, I think it's critical that we spend time like we have today thinking about what we want our state to look like in 2050. We should be setting the agenda rather than reacting to it, proactively shaping the industries, jobs, communities and lifestyle that we want, and then chasing the investment and trade partnerships that will get us there. So on behalf of DEED, we want to extend our thanks and congratulations to Paula and the Committee for Perth team for hosting today's summit and for their continued commitment to ensuring our city is sustainable, livable and thriving for future generations. I'd like to thank today's speakers, all of you for sharing your insights and contributing to the critical conversations we need to have about energy, our economy and our sustainability as a city. And to all of the attendees for your engagement and curiosity. Often I look around and I think, oh, how many people are here toward the end of the day? Now, it could have something to do with the promise of drinks, but I reckon this is a pretty good retention rate for the summit today, and I think the energy has been pretty consistent throughout. And platforms such as these, and I think it was mentioned by the speaker before, are so important for sharing knowledge, collaboration as we continue to shape and promote Perth as a place to live, work, study and invest. So thank you again on behalf of DEED to the Committee for Perth for the opportunity to sponsor this summit today. Thank you.
And thank you, Simone, for that fabulous wrap-up. I want to thank our sponsors. Again, starting off in the morning, we had Rio, then we had ECU, the countdown is on till the city campus opens its doors, and then DEED represented, closing out the event today by Simone. But also a huge thank you to Purple. I think you captured the energy and continued the energy. It's been a long and an idea-fueled day, and we're just so grateful that you chose, as I said in the beginning, you chose to come here, you chose to stay, and you actually do deserve a drink. But before you do, I just also want to ask for one massive help from you. I need a massive round of applause to my team that have helped deliver this today. It's extraordinary. So Kelly there, Kelly, Francine, and the team of support we had, we couldn't have done it. And we're not a very big team, but what we have delivered in terms of the creatives and everything is just extraordinary. I am forever grateful to their belief in this vision that we could actually do it. And I just want to say we did. So thank you to you. Thank you to our sponsors, the facilitators, and drinks are ready in the foyer. You deserve them. We deserve them. Thank you.